For more on this trend on organic food and gluten-free, we talked to Zack Kaldveer, spokesperson for the Organic Consumers Association, joining us live from Oakland, California. And welcome to the show, sir. Good to have you on. This was an interesting topic. I brought it up in the newsroom. A lot of people had a lot of questions. Let me first start by asking, what are the key health benefits when it comes to organic food?
Well, to qualify to be an organic food, it means that the food grown does not use pesticides, chemical additives, synthetic fertilizers, genetically modified organisms, and that means that the huge amounts of toxic pesticides that are needed for genetically modified organisms are not doused on the food. And also I'd point out the animals that produce the meat, poultry, dairy, and eggs are not treated with growth hormones or antibiotics. So the benefits of going organic is not just due to the numerous health consequences of our current food system, which really incentivizes diets of high calorie, high salt, and high sugar, but also the environmental consequences of our factory farming system that really pollutes our air and water, and the cleanup costs that are required for that. So it's really both a health decision as well as a values-based decision on what you want to spend your money on.
Zack, when I go to the grocery store, or when anyone else goes to the grocery store and it says organic, how do I know it's actually organic?
Well, this is that's a good question. The organic industry, unlike the conventional food systems, which utilize all the rather hazardous and concerning methods I just outlined, organics doesn't. They do not require any kind of labeling nor any kind of strict regulations like organics do, ironically. Organic industry is regulated by the National Organic Program, which is actually an arm of the USDA. And they have to go through on-site routine inspections. They have to include really detailed written audits, and this is done to ensure that they are following strict compliance methods.
But isn't the point that for the consumer, until you go to the cash register and you pay extra for the organic foods, you really aren't 100% sure? Where's the quality control in that?
Well, the quality control comes from the USDA and the National Organic Program. Now, for the small amounts of organic foods that are, by the way, contaminated by genetically modified organisms and therefore might have a 1%, 2% contamination, that's not the fault of organic farmers. That's the fault of the large genetically modified crops whose genetically modified organisms actually contaminate the organic farmers.
I've got a lot of questions from our staff here, so I want to get to a couple more here. You say that pesticides, chemicals, all this stuff, if you don't use it, it makes it organic. That costs money. And I guess a lot of people ask, why does organic food have to cost so much if you're not adding all these extra expenses onto the final product?
Well, that's another good question, and it's a multifaceted answer. I think there's the largely understood reasons why the label costs, and I'll get to why I make that distinction in a minute, is more for organic foods, and that's because I think the economies of scale of small organic farms versus the large factory farms, and also organic farming is a little bit more labor intensive because they don't use the pesticides. But there are hidden costs that are not seen on the labels that all taxpayers are paying. And that's the huge amount, hundreds of billions of subsidies that taxpayers pay to big agriculture. It's also the health consequences of our really poor American diet now. And then also the environmental costs that taxpayers incur for the cleanup of factory farms.
I want to ask you...
It's a more complicated question than just the label cost.
I want to ask you about one more topic that's near and dear to many parents out there, and that's, for those with young children, you have a baby, you go to the grocery store, and you walk down the aisle, and you know what I'm talking about. You see one side, it's just normal food. The other side, it's all organic food. There's organic milk now for the babies. All these things, it's a whole entire section for kids. How big of a difference is it to buy organic food for the kids versus non-organic?
Well, I think it's absolutely critical in the sense that you don't want to be gambling with the health of your children when you take into account all the chemicals that are used in our current factory farming system and our current highly processed food system, which 80% contain genetically modified organisms, which have a lot of other related concerns. So I think it makes perfect sense for a parent to be cautious and buy and purchase foods that they know come from small organic farmers that don't use those pesticides and chemicals.
I want to thank you for joining us this Friday evening. Thank you for answering all those questions. Spokesperson for the Organic Consumers Association.